Hey, I'm James. Now, if you're in the enviable position where you have your own radio show or you're starting your own podcast and you're not sure exactly how to script it, where do you begin writing words that you're going to be reading out on air, live, down a microphone? You certainly don't want to mess up, right? Well, don't worry, because we're going to be talking about all of that in today's video. So if you're new to the channel, my name's James Mulvaney, and very quickly, I've been working with thousands of broadcasters, radio station owners, and podcasters for like the last 15 years. So I wanted to create this video to help you with your podcasting and radio woes, especially if you're not sure exactly where to start writing a script. We've written tons and tons of scripts for lots of radio stations and podcasts, and I'll show you exactly how it's done in the industry and how you can replicate the results to make sure you're smashing it on air every time. Now, if you want to get more videos from me like this one, remember to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you get updates whenever I push out new videos like this, as I'm doing them every single week. And also, if you find this video useful, remember to hit that like button. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to be giving you 2 free scripts which you can download and put into practice and really steal my ideas, which is awesome, right? Okay, so the first question we need to ask before we get into how to write a radio script is really, what format are we actually presenting for? Obviously, if you're presenting for talk radio, it's going to be really different for music radio, and here are the kind of key differences. Talk radio, longer form content, right? You might be talking for 10, 20, or even 30 minutes at a time. Sometimes you might even be talking for an hour. It completely depends on the format that you're recording or presenting for. So with music radio, it's a lot quicker. You might have between 30 seconds and 2 minutes to get out what you need to say, and you have to do that in kind of a really slick, polished way. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure on presenters, especially presenting like fast-paced, younger kind of music, to make sure that they're sounding slick on air, which is fine, but it's just a case of getting in your head exactly the format and the structure that you need to say and making sure that you're not jumping over your words or tripping up on what you're saying too much. So hopefully these tips will help you really with some of that stuff. So my first tip is write how you speak. Now remember, when you're writing a script, quite often people will sit down in front of a document and they'll start sort of thinking in like letter writing mode, like, "Dear Sir or Madam, I'm pleased to announce that blah blah blah," whatever. Now remember, that is not how we speak to people when we're having a conversation. So the first thing you need to get to your head is it needs to be conversational. It needs to kind of be how you would say it in real life. The best way to do this is actually just sit and read back through what you've written and think about, does it actually just sound natural? Like, am I speaking in sense, or does this sound like a weird kind of script, quote unquote? You know what I mean? The idea of a script isn't necessarily on radio being word for word perfect. It's more a case of it's a guide of what points you need to make. So sometimes people prefer a bulleted list approach versus having like big paragraphs or chunks of text that you read word by word. Give yourself some room to meander if you like, if that's your style, but have the script or have your guide there as a reference point to keep you back on track. Because the worst thing is when you meander and you end up losing track of what you're saying, or you completely forget about what you're originally talking about. And sometimes you listen to radio shows and they'll go off on complete tangents, and it can be a bit of a turn off for the listener. So giving yourself a structure is really important, but also remember to write how you'd actually speak, and just keep mental reference notes or mental reference points of what you're saying, just to keep you on track. Okay, my second tip is keep it simple. KISS. Right, we've heard this so many times before. Couldn't ring more true when you're writing a script for radio or you're presenting a live show. Now, it's tempting to use fancy words to make yourself sound big and clever, but ultimately these are the sort of things that will just trip you up, okay? Yes, you can kind of get some fancy words in, but some people, want to just hear something that's simple and concise. So don't overcomplicate it. Remember, keep it simple. So tip number 4 is telling your story right by setting your scene. Now, when I say this, obviously it's not like a video. Your listeners can hear what you're saying. So you need to describe and set up situations in their heads, almost paint this visual picture for them before you actually get into what it is you're talking about, to kind of give it some context. So when you're writing a script, it's always important to remember to actually start by painting this picture and setting a scene. It's really important to format your script. Now, this I can't stress enough. If you look at a big page of content or information, and even if it's split up into paragraph, it makes it very hard to follow if you're like reading on air. It's crucial that you actually format your script so you kind of have more like visual indicators. So use bold text, use underlined text, use different size fonts to make sure that you can keep flowing down. Don't try and squeeze all the information about a whole show, particularly if you're doing a talk show or you've got some long topics to discuss. Try and cram it all onto one page can be very dangerous sometimes. Try and have it spread over several pages. Keep it loose, keep it flowing, and keep it in a format that you can easily understand. There's no harm, and sometimes we've even seen people annotate stuff, so draw on it. If you want to, raise a certain point, or you think something's really important, or you need to emphasize it somehow, draw some big arrows. Or if you want to do something that's meant to be really funny and it's meant to be uplifting, draw a big smiley face. If you can use visual cues and stuff that makes sense to you as a person, it will help you come across better on air. Next up, if you're writing scripts for other presenters, perhaps you're producing a show for someone, you need to write it in their voice. You need to get to understand their tone, their pace, and have a good understanding of who they are as a person before you can really start writing scripts for them. It helps actually to sit down with that person and go through the script. Make sure you do what is known as a table read, which is where you read through it, even if it's just kind of very, very quickly skimming over the main points. You don't have to literally read everything word for word, but I think if you can actually write for them in a tone that suits them, it can be really useful, and try and break it down into manageable sections. Okay, finally, a few tips to finish up on. Firstly, mix things up. Doesn't have to be the same each time. If you find a certain style or a certain format of script works better than another one, stick to the one that works and try different things to see how it suits your style as a presenter. Remember to always read through your scripts before you go out live on air, or even before you're recording a segment, just so you know everything that's contained within it. As I mentioned before, you don't have to sit down and read through everything. Just make sure you skim it and get a good idea of the gist of what is contained within the script, what is coming up in your show, and what segments are important that you need to discuss. It might be that you're running a competition on a radio station, so you've got a competition read to do, or it could be that you're teasing what is coming up next after your show. Just make sure that at the beginning of your show you're completely familiar with everything that you need to discuss. Okay, so there we have it. That is how to write an effective script for your radio show or your podcast. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I'd love to share with you some templates, some script templates, which you can download instantly. Just head to jamesm.com/scripts. That's jamesm.com/scripts, and I've got a bunch of different scripts which you can download for various different purposes, including music and talk radio, and they'll be yours free of charge. Just enter your name and your email address and I'll send them over to you straight away. Thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, remember to give me a thumbs up and please subscribe for more content like this. Alright, take it easy.